So taking a look at layer property, here in the layer panel, we want to make sure that we have here at least a layer for the border, a center line layer. The def points layer comes when you first dimension, and it's automatic. With AutoCAD, just leave that layer alone for your def points, dimensions, and objects. Now for the layer called center lines, we're going to go ahead and click on the word continuous, and notice that there's only really one line type that's loaded with AutoCAD. It's continuous. I already loaded the center, so you go ahead and pick the load button and see all of the different line types that come with AutoCAD. You can even resize here this dialog box. We're going to look for the line type called center, and what that does is it loads it into the drawing, but you're still going to need to highlight center here in this dialog box, pick OK, and then that layer has the line type center, and that's where we get these center lines here. So go ahead and create layers called border, center lines, dimensions, and objects. Change the color if you'd like. You don't need to use the colors that I'm working with, but more importantly, highlight the center lines layer and make sure that the line type is going to be center. I'm going to go ahead and close out of this layer dialog box. Now, by now you know that you can draw here either a rectangle or use lines to draw the border that's 11 by 8.5. Looking at this exercise, which is in the book, you can see that we have several circles that we're going to be working with. Now, I've given you kind of a step-by-step if you'd like to use this as a way of drafting your objects. You can start by creating these two smaller circles here, and be careful that you're using diameter and not radius. The two circles that are at the bottom left here are diameter. So you'll want to change your layer to objects and then start the circle center diameter, pick a point, type in 2 and enter, and then go back to circle center diameter, go to the center of that circle, type in 1 and enter. So because it's radius, I'll go ahead and pick center, radius, pick the center of this circle, and type in 3 and enter. And that will give me here this arc that eventually I'll move to the center line layer. Based on this arc, we have a circle here that's 3 inches from the center. So we can make the center line layer current and draw a line here. Rest your pointer on the polar tracking icon at the very bottom. Right click and go to settings. In here, I'll delete this one because you might not have one. You can go ahead and pick new and then type in 40 for your new angle. That's an angle that we need for this exercise. And then pick OK. Now, with the center lines layer current, I'm going to go ahead and start the line command, pick a point in the center of the circle, and pull my mouse towards the 40-degree direction, making sure that that tooltip says 40. I can go ahead and left click. This line doesn't have an exact distance for it. It's the center line. You can right click and pick enter. Now I can change my layer to objects and draw my other circles. I know that I have a center radius here, and this circle is 0.5, and I can right click and go back to radius. I know that it's going to go back to radius. I'm going to pick a point here, and because 0.5 is already in brackets, I'll go ahead and press enter. And that 0.5 is coming from this radius here of 0.5. This half arc is actually a full circle that we're going to trim. And then we have another radius here that's 1. So I'm going to go ahead and start the circle command. Pick here, type in 1 and enter. Same thing here, another radius of 1. So I've got something similar to this. From this point, there are several different ways of drawing this detail. but what I used was an offset. If you look at the drawing, there's a 1 inch between these two circle ends. I can create an offset of the center line of 0.5 and enter. I'll select the circle and I'll pick out here anywhere outside of the circle. See, it's 0.5 because of this 1.0 dimension. It's 0.5 between the center and this curve. And then I can select it again and go out here to the outer side, because once again I know that this radius is 0.5 and this one is 1, so there's 0.5 between these two. And I'll do the same thing here inside, creating several rings that I'll be able to trim to create our new shape. Now I can use the trim command. If I start the trim command, I can press enter to accept everything as a cutting edge. And by doing that, I can just cross over all of these outer rings and see that they all trim. And now, being careful what I'm selecting, I can start to trim out what I don't need here on the inside. You can refer to the worksheet to get a better idea of what you're trimming. All of the inside pieces, if you select too many lines, they're the wrong ones, it's okay. You can always go back and erase here what you didn't get. So like this one right here, I can pick the erase icon, select it and enter it, and it's here erased. At this point I have my circles and I have this kind of notch out, and now I need to create here this radius. The way that I did this is similar to what the book was talking about with tangent, radius, circles. So I'm going to drop this list of ways of drawing a circle down and pick tangent, radius. I can pick here the edge of one circle, pick over here the other edge, and then your command line says radius. We know the radius is 5. I'll type in 5 and enter. Same thing below here. I'll start the tangent, radius command. I'll select the edge of this circle and this arc, and then type in 3 and enter. Now I can use the trim command. I'll start the trim command and press enter to accept everything as a cutting edge, and then just trim out what you don't want until you get to the point where your drawing looks similar to the end result. When you want to move an object to the right layer, you can select it with grips and then drop this list down of layers and pick right on the layer you'd like it to go to. So I just selected the object with grips, drop this layer list down, and picked which layer I'd like line to go to. And now you're ready to set the center lines layer current and draw your other center lines. You can use grips to stretch out this line. So we want it to be a little bit longer. I can select the line with so that it has blue grips, pick inside the grip that's at the end, pull my mouse down and left click, use the escape key to get rid of the grips, and do the same thing for this center line. And because an arc is actually going to here follow its extension, I can also use grips to make this arc a little bit longer. Using the arrow keys, now you're ready to dimension. You can set the dimension layer current and basically use here the angular dimension to pick these two lines and get your 40-degree angle. And you have radius. You can use radius for all of these. And yours probably has 4 places to the right. We can pick right on the word annotation and then pick this little icon that looks like a paintbrush on top of a dimension. Another way of getting to this Dimension Style Manager dialog box is to just type in D and enter. Now you can pick the Modify button, go to the Primary Units tab and change here the precision to 2 places to the right. Pick OK and close, and you'll see that your dimensions that have 4 places to the right are now 2. We've got just a few more radiuses to pick up, and these I can right click and pick those up here. And now we have diameter. We can pick up diameter here for this circle and for this inner circle. Now the tricky one is going to be this 3.0, because we'll go ahead and place it as a radius.
Select the dimension, then right-click and pick Properties.
In the Fit section of the Properties palette, where it says Text Movement, you want to change that to Move Text with No Leader. That way you'll have the option of moving the text around with no leader. You see, it actually makes it look more like the exercise here. One more dimension would be the aligned dimension. We're going to use aligned for this 1 foot dimension. It's going to align from the midpoint to the midpoint. So make sure you pick up the midpoints as you're drawing that last dimension. You can always use grips to pull this radius over a little bit out of the way, watching for the object snaps. If you didn't get a chance to bring here the border over, you can go ahead and make the border layer current, start the rectangle command, pick a point for your first corner, right click and pick dimensions, type in 11 and enter, and 8.5 and enter, and then left click which direction you'd like your border to be drawn in, and you've got your border. You can drag and drop it into place, and then we didn't make a text layer, but you can use the dimension layer for your text. You can pick the multi-line text icon here, and then pick a point, pull your mouse across, pick another point, and start typing in your title. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to keep in touch.